go ahead and go up. That's it. Well, good morning and welcome to the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for January the 23rd, 2020. Carol, do you agree we have a quorum? We have a quorum, therefore we'll call the meeting to order. The item 2 on the agenda is a very pleasant task that we have today, and I'd like to call on Mark Beck if he would come forward and read a proposed resolution.
Whereas Wayne Corvell was hired by the City of Oklahoma City on August 8, 1989 as a Unit Operations Manager 2 in the Public Works Department, and whereas Wayne Corvell was promoted to Engineering Projects Manager for the MAPS office on July 23, 2010, and whereas during his service with the City of Oklahoma City, Wayne Corvell has negotiated architectural and engineering contracts, reviewed change orders and amendments, and reviewed preliminary reports and final plans and specifications for the MAPS 3 projects. And whereas Wayne Corvell has overseen many of the largest projects in the city's history, including the Chesapeake Arena, the NBA practice facility, the MAPS 3 Convention Center, and Sizzletail Park. And whereas Wayne Corvell retired on December 12, 2019, after 30 years of service to the citizens of Oklahoma City, and whereas the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board wishes to thank and recognize Wayne Corvell for his service and dedication to the MAPS 3 program. Now therefore be it resolved by the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board that they do hereby recognize and thank Wayne Corvell for his service to the citizens of Oklahoma City and the MAPS 3 program.
Is there a motion? It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution as written by Mark. During the period of discussion, Wayne, I want to say to you on a personal note how much we all appreciate the great work that you did, not just for the city, but also for all of us. And we are very... Microphone up a little closer. Well, I was just saying, Wayne, it is a pleasure for us to have you here and to have the opportunity to present you with this resolution, and also to say a personal word of thank you to you for the service that you rendered to the Citizens Advisory Board and the various subcommittees. Citizen oversight is an integral part of the MAPS process, and you have been an important factor in providing that oversight and making sure that we knew what we were looking at and had a chance to understand what was put before us. And so I just want to say a personal word of thanks to you for all that you have done for the city, but specifically for the MAPS 3 project. If you'd come forward, I'd like to hand you that resolution. David says I can move this farther away now. That'd be less interesting, what I'm going to say. All right, that brings us to item 3 on the agenda. You've all been furnished with copies of the minutes of our previous meeting on December 19. Are there additions or corrections?
I move that we accept the minutes as written. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. That brings us to item 4, the Revenue and Expenditures Report. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet the Revenues and Expenditure Report. Actually, 2. There's the one for the period ending December 31st, 2019. On the revenue side of a negative $10,272, and that has to do with some reallocations. Fiscal year $2,183,302, and a total of $833,111,487. Then on the expenditure side, I have $7,878,632. Fiscal year $50,529,759, and total of $630,110,510. Then, as I said, you also have the revenue and expenditure report for November 30th, 2019. On the revenue side for the month, $384,196. Fiscal year, $2,193,574. Total, $833,121,759. And on the expenditure side for that period, for the month, $11,818,455. Fiscal year, $42,651,127. A total of $622,231,879. Then you also have the Budget and Obligations Report for the period ending January 2nd of 2020, and I'll try to answer any questions you might have on any of this.
Questions for David?
I move we accept the report. Second.
Been moved and seconded. We accept the report as presented. I want to take just a moment to, while we're on the expenditure and budget report, I want to make mention of this. I've been advised by the mayor and council that they are ready for us to move forward with our process about the excess funds. You know, we've had a plan in place for where we've considered this, but it's been a couple of months since we have looked at it. So I'm going to ask David to next month refresh our recollection about where we are in terms of the excess funds that we project will be available, and a look at the plan that is currently in place, so that we can, as expeditiously as possible, get that issue forward to the City Council for their consideration. All right. With that, let's go to item number 5. David? We need to vote on the Revenue and Expenditure Report. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. It's approved. It's received. Item 5, David?
Item 5 is recommend joint resolution approving change order number 16 and amendment number 6, Maps 3, Scissortail Upper Park, increase of $44,207.36, project M3-P006, WC0920. Yes, the park has opened, but there's still some things that as we start with operations that we realize need to be addressed, and like starting off with the first one, there's just some additional lighting stock, realizing that lights are going to be damaged and either through activities or weather or something like that. So there's additional lighting stock that needs to be purchased, some door modifications. There was some tree removal that had to take place because we did have some trees die, which was expected. and some playground concrete modifications. So this is all what I would consider routine closeout kind of things, trying to wrap up the park. And the park did not have a quorum, but this came with a recommendation from those that were there.
Questions for David? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt and we approve the recommendation as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 3, MAPS 3 Downtown Public Upper Park Tree Package, increase of $9,676 and accepting the project M3-P006A. So if you recall, we had a separate package for the trees that were purchased ahead of time and stored, and there was a specific duration in that contract, and the time period for the park construction slid a little bit, and therefore there were some additional costs for storage of those trees. When all the negotiations were done, we landed on $9,676 to compensate the contractor for those storage costs.
The resolution has been moved and seconded for approval. Is there further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is approved. Item 7, David.
Item 7 is recommend resolution waiving consultant selection procedures and approving engineering services contract with Johnson & Associates Incorporated, MAPS 3 Scissortail Lower Park replat, $30,500, project M3-P018. There are some activities that need to take place engineering-wise for the lower park, specifically vacation of the plat and the right-of-way areas, and then replatting. It didn't make sense to get another party involved in doing engineering down there when we already have an engineer who's already got the background and footprint, so to speak, in that area. So that's why we've waived the consultant selection and are recommending this contract to Johnson Associates, because they are the sub-consultant for Hargraves, which is doing the lower park.
Moved and seconded. We approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 8 on your agenda was not considered yesterday in the subcommittee meeting and has been moved to the agenda for next month. So item 8 is stricken from the agenda. Item 9, David.
Item 9 is recommend a resolution approving change order number 20, MAPS 3 Convention Center, increase of $569,145, project M3-C003. Kevin, are you going to talk on this one or just on the 4th Street? Just 4th. Okay, this is a change order for the convention center. Several items in here, and I might add that construction is going exceptionally well with the convention center. Very pleased with what's going on. So there were some additional mechanical systems controls, some additional concrete paving. On 4th Street, there was a little piece between where we had stopped on the what we call the old Broadway alignment versus the new Broadway alignment, and this kind of levels that out, evens it up, if you will. Some additional control joints in the wall, some additional insulation, very small amounts. The most substantial amounts are the north pantry revisions and the south pantry revisions. These are revisions that came from the operator as we proceeded further into design. It's become evident that the way they want to operate, this would serve them better to have these facilities changed in this respect. So this was well debated at the subcommittee meeting and comes with their recommendation.
I'll just add, we did have a quorum, and this was debated at the subcommittee and was unanimously approved. Are there questions or further discussion for David before we move it?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. All right, that brings us to item 10, and Kevin Cook.
Item 10 is recommend resolution approving a preliminary report, Maps 3 4th Street Experience, Project M3-C013. Kevin Cook from Populous Architects is here today to walk you through this additional project that we're looking at the Convention Center. So I'd like to turn it over to Kevin.
Welcome, Kevin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I hope you all are as excited about the progress of the Convention Center as we are. And as David said, things are going really well, but I'm not here to talk about that today. So I'm here to present to you what we've been calling the 4th Street Experience. This is the preliminary report presentation that we presented to the subcommittee on Tuesday. This started as an idea from our subcommittee, I would say maybe a year or so ago even. It was brought up to do something to enhance 4th Street. Already during the project and in our scope, we have the contractor is going to be enhancing 4th Street. We always talk about nice pavers, finishes, landscape, seating. We have that outdoor space on the north side of our building. But the subcommittee wanted to do something a little bit different, something unique to this space between the new hotel and the convention center, something that would be kind of memorable, something different in Oklahoma City. And so we've had a lot of back and forth and presented a concept back in August to our subcommittee, and it got a good recommendation to move forward into preliminary report and early design on the project, and that's what we're presenting here. So what you see here on the screen and on your sheets is a site plan on the bottom of the page showing the Convention Center Omni Hotel on the north side and the new Convention Center on the south side. So 4th Street, Robinson Street is to the left, and the existing Broadway is to the right. And what we're looking at doing is putting a series of tall canopies running down 4th Street. There were always discussions about providing some protection for people out in that space. The hope is that it can be shaded. You'd have some protection from the elements if needed, and create kind of a unique, intimate pedestrian experience along 4th Street. There's going to be a lot of pedestrians moving back and forth between the hotel and the convention center for meetings and events. And not to mention with the new park just on the other side of Robinson Street, we wanted something that could tie in and be something unique to tie in with all three projects. So what we have here is, right now, we're showing 12 canopies, 10 of them within the base bid and 2 alternate canopies to the east. The idea is that these canopies move down 4th Street, create little zones of space. One thing I'll mention, there are a ton of utilities in 4th Street. There's OG&E duct banks, there's storm and sanitary sewer lines, there's data, cabling lines, there's all sorts of stuff in 4th Street. So to thread these canopies down 4th Street, it was a pretty challenging task. We think we've got them located specifically where they can work between the buildings as well as miss utilities. A couple other things that we had to do, we did a lot of coordination with the Omni team and wanted to make sure that the canopies, as you can see, are tall, don't impact their views out of their meeting space along 4th and Robinson Street. The hotel team also has a large electrical transformer vault there at the east side near Broadway that we had to be mindful of. On the convention center side, we had a lot of outdoor public space, plaza space where the building opens up. And so we located more canopies along our side. Finally, you'll notice that big gap kind of in the middle between the two bunches. On the Omni side, that's their designed bus drop-off for their guests. So having buses pull off there, and buses typically sit and idle, exhaust, that kind of stuff. We wanted the ability to let that escape easier, get through there. And then the gap on the convention center side, the south side of 4th Street, we had some meetings with the local fire department, and they recommended the idea, or at least appreciated having this gap here to let their trucks be able to go down 4th Street and have some space for ladder access and other things. So the canopies are all the same in plan form at the top, but they are different, 3 different heights. As you can see, there's a tall, medium, large from 46 feet down to 34 feet. That's still tall enough for all emergency vehicles and traffic to move through 4th Street at any time. And then there's three major components. There's the structural steel frame of the canopy, which is basically what we've been calling the trunk and the branches. And then there's wood louvers, horizontal wood louvers that run across the top that provide the shade. And then on top of all of that is a clear plastic ETFE membrane, which is an alternative solution for glazing up there. It's much lighter. It's pulled really tight in tension. It sheds water. It's self-cleaning. It does all that, and it won't sag under snow or ice or anything up there. And so we thought that was a really good material. It lets light through so the landscaping can still grow and get light, but it provides some shade and protection. At the foundation, these have very large foundations. They're very tall. So there will be drilled piers that go into the ground with a large pier cap on top, and then the canopy base is attached to the foundation top. So as you can see in some of these renderings, just how the variation of heights of each of the canopies creates a very unique and interesting space. You can see in the top right picture what it could look like with, maybe events with tents or an art fair or some sort of outdoor thing where we would close off 4th Street and let the events spill over from either the convention center or the hotel. And we're also mindful of how the canopies work with the current design. We don't want to have to redo or change the design very much on our side, so we worked hard at where they fell in location as well as how they impacted, as you can see in the bottom right, the current signage and other things can still remain. They still fit and look appropriate due to the scale of these large canopies. Some of our subcommittee members wanted to know about, can you hang banners from these things? Can we brand them in a way to help advertise an event? And those are all options that we want to continue to look at moving forward. I do agree those are good ideas and things we should continue to do to help both facilities. Lighting for the canopies, you can see in the top left and a little bit underneath that. The idea was initially to have these canopies kind of glow and be able to see them light up, but the more we looked at it, we also want them to be used, being so tall up, to actually put light down on the ground surface so the pedestrian experience feels immersed in that lighting, whether it's branded for a Thunder game or just a cool event to let the canopies do an additional function of providing light for that area. We intend to have power at each canopy, so booths and other event tents and things can plug into each one of them and utilize power out there. And the canopies all have a gutter and drainage system so that the water doesn't just spill directly off the sides. As we get farther into final plans and design, we'll work out a lot more of those exact details. So the current schedule where we stand is after today, if we get your recommendation, we'll move on to council on the 4th to get the preliminary report approved. Then that starts our final plans phase where we draw and finish the detailing and drawing for the project for the canopies. That would be done by June 9th. We'd then go into bidding in July and construction thereafter. The hope is that all these projects are wrapping up, in late fall, into the year kind of thing, and we'd love to be able to have these be in place then as well to have minor impact to the openings of any of the other projects. Right now we have an overall budget estimated at $4 million. With 10 canopies, we can be just under that with our very first preliminary estimate that we've had done. So that's why we have 2 alternate canopies right now for an additional $800,000. The hope would be we can potentially have this go out for bidding and come under budget, but there's also an alternative idea of rolling this directly into Flintco, our general contractor's scope with the convention center, if that makes sense and the pricing works to where they're already on site, they're already doing the work on 4th Street, maybe they can, we can work it out to where they would be able to just do the canopies themselves and eliminate that bidding time and need there. So I guess maybe any questions before I go on to the next item associated with this?
Just one question about the horizontal wood louvers. Any concern with the wood, it would deteriorate over time? How do you replace them?
So I should have mentioned that the wood louvers being used are the exact same wood composite panels that we're using on the convention center, so they match and are the same material. And if you remember, we have those on the underside of our soffits and up on some of the exterior walls. You don't see them, and they're not installed yet today out there if you've been driving by. But these have since it's a composite material, they have a much longer life than just a solid piece of wood, for example, out there.
Covered by the plastic.
And they would be covered by the plastic, yes.
So I had a question on, there's been talk in the past about a bridge between the hotel and the convention center. And so does this rule that out, or?
Well, the bridge has never been ruled out, and the design of the convention center itself still has the ability to add the bridge. But right now, these canopies would be in the way of the bridge as currently shown. It's a good comment and something maybe we could refresh and look at again. But right now, the bridge would
If we
impact.
decide to build a bridge, we'd be knocking down a couple of the
You may
canopies.
have to remove a canopy or two, yeah.
Kevin, it is true, though, that we do have a bridge from the parking garage
Absolutely.
to into the convention center. The parking garage is for the Omni Hotel and other facilities there, and this would not interfere with that bridge,
Correct.
would it?
This does not go that far east.
Your renderings don't show, I guess, the view with that bridge in the background. So.
Yeah, the bottom left and the top right canopy, you can see the
Oh, yeah,
bridge
okay, I see it.
way in the distance
Okay.
that connects to the future parking garage.
So that's the one to the parking garage, not
Correct.
the one to the hotel. Okay. And then my other question, I guess, maybe, the $4 million obviously comes out of the convention center budget, but that's money we haven't yet allocated, right? I mean, it reduced the amount of possible excess funds we have in the convention center.
Well, anything we spend would reduce
Right.
the
I mean, this
excess funds,
wasn't
but
in-
it's within,
It's not in the amount we previously approved, so this is
it's within the budget of the
the overall
convention center.
budget, right?
Right.
But we've been
It has
talking about-
nothing to do with any kind of excess funds.
I understand that. But we've talked about potentially having X amount of money in excess in the convention center.
This
would reduce that.
No, this it still keeps that.
Mike, as I'm understanding it, and your question was asked in the subcommittee as well, and at least the way I'm thinking about it is, as long as we do not exceed the convention center subcommittee budget as now approved, there will be excess money. And so this would not reduce
Well,
that.
I understand that, I guess.
Mike, there's between $26 and $27 million in excess funds in the convention center right now, so this $4 million wouldn't even get into the proposed $20 million savings that's in there.
It would eat into that $27 million.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Michael?
Remind me, originally, wasn't it about $20 million that we thought might be available? And I know that was early on. I'm just.
And that's what, it still
Yeah, that's what I-
it still
This
keeps
doesn't
that.
change that.
Yeah, it still keeps that number. That's the issue.
Yes. I wanted to mention one other thing as Kevin was, it reminded me that on the previous item where we approved the changes, one of the questions asked Kevin was, would that extend the completion date? And the answer was no, they weren't asking for any additional time. So as we think about this, the plan is still the same. We still have the same completion date, but all of these things are working to get the Omni Hotel, the 4th Street experience at the convention center target date still hasn't been changed.
Correct. The convention center substantial completion is still September 19th. Change order, the previous change order you just passed did not affect that date in any way. And as we go into this next item, that's also the case.
And you would hope to have this 4th Street experience completed in that time frame as well.
We would love to, yes.
Other questions?
I think Cecilia has one.
Cecilia?
So the item is just to, there's not a number on it.
I'm understanding that they have brought this preliminary report in, and they're asking if we approve this resolution, then we will go to council and ask them to approve this as a project, and we're asking for the authority to go forward with the drawings
plans.
and the final plans.
And then they'll come back to us with a final number that we'll recommend.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely,
All right.
yes.
Is that the
Yes.
final number to go out to bid, or the final number?
Well, it would be a final estimate, and then at that time, we will have talked to Flint Co. and see if it makes sense to change order or send it out as a separate bid.
How easy is it to replace the ETFE plastic membrane? Because we do have hailstorms here, and if you've ever had a convertible here in Oklahoma City, you know that convertible rooftops will...
Correct. So the ETFE membrane is attached with a structural system and a cabling system that keeps it tight in tension at all times. So it's called hail resistant. I know that's not true. There's softball-sized hail that will pretty much go through anything. So I believe that at that rate you're dealing with damage on more than just your ETFE probably. But it can be replaced. It's a fabric material that's easy. Could be come off. If one gets damaged, you're not impacting all the others. You take it off and
Okay.
reestablish it.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I guess the only thing, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I know the next item is talking about foundations for this. Well, I'm just in order, I mean, we've done enough engineering, I guess, to know what the foundation cost is. And we're going to go ahead and proceed with the foundation even before we approve the canopies.
I would like for you to let Kevin give you his
Well, I didn't want to
presentation.
vote on one thing before I knew what.
Well, so the next item is change order 21 associated with the convention center directly in this 4th Street experience. And so what we did, knowing that the foundation work impacts the current scope for the contractor, they're out there ready to start working on 4th Street, the landscaping, the paving areas on the sidewalk side of our project, and eventually they want to actually demo 4th Street and prepare it for the enhanced paving and other things we were doing. If we let them continue without doing the foundations for the canopies, you're going to have the redo issue where they're going to have to go back and tear things up. So we specifically asked our structural team to try to do an enhanced or early package on the structural side of foundations to let Flitco then have the ability to price it and give us a number that we could bring to you to present the option to put in the foundations now for all 12 canopies. If the canopies, let's say, never ever get approved and never happen, then you'll have 12 foundations in the ground that you'll never see. They'll be covered up, they'll be paved over, nothing. If you just do 10 of them, as we have currently in the base scope, and the 2 alternates don't get approved, there'll be 2 sitting under the ground that could be added to someday. The structure's there, it'll be engineered and ready to go. So this idea here to bring to you guys in change order 21 for the convention center was to have Flintco do that work for $725,287. No extension on time. They've got the people and ability to start and do that work now. They would like to do it now because of scheduling and impact to the rest of the work they want to get done on the project. So that's what we're presenting here.
So the total cost of the project's the $4 million plus the $700,000?
No, we would have 3.2-ish left over.
Left over. So this comes out of the $4 million?
Correct.
Okay.
Further questions? These are all great questions. This was discussed at length at the meeting of the convention center, and your points are all really well taken. And obviously, if the preliminary report doesn't get approved by the council, well, then they might consider that at the same time they're considering this. So there's still, we would know by the time we got to this, I think, Michael, whether or not we were going ahead with the final plans for this before we started the construction, wouldn't we?
Yeah, the only issue would, I guess, if the bids came in twice what we anticipated or something, then we'd have to reconsider, I guess.
Absolutely. All right. Further discussion? Shall we do it? Yeah, we have 2 items now to consider. The first one we're going to consider is item 10 that Kevin discussed first, which is an approval of the preliminary plans to move those forward to the council for consideration. Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve it. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. That then takes us to item 11, which is the one that Kevin has just explained. Kevin, would you do one more thing for me?
Yes.
You're always nice enough to explain to us what percentage of the total budget and so forth these change orders have been to our subcommittee each month. Would you take just a minute or two to tell the board that?
Yeah, so on the screen is our current summary of all of our change order and amendment costs for the convention center. Change order 21 is added to this spreadsheet or number chart. The one thing I always point out to our subcommittee is the total number there you see for change orders in the bottom paragraph is at $7.8 million with this foundation added to it. That's where we currently are today, which is an increase that shows there of 4.66% over the original amount. So we're still less than 5% total in all change orders for this project, which is really well for a project of this size in our experience. And it's something to also note that a lot of that number has been added scope, which is making your building better, not just corrections or things like that. We've done a lot of things. You may all remember new elevator, new paving, a lot of new features, enhanced loading dock. We added this canopy system, a lot of these things. So these are things that weren't initially in the project that have come about during construction that are making your building even better.
All right. We've had a motion to approve? We haven't. Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded. We approve the resolution as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you being here. That then brings us to item number 12 on our agenda, which is new business. David, any new business or any member of the...
We don't have any.
Any member have a new business? Then that takes us to item 13, the Citizens Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. Any subcommittees have information they'd like to bring forward today?
I think Senior Wellness Centers, to Tom, yesterday at our subcommittee meeting, we had presentations from the architects for both Wellness Center number 3 and 4. During those discussions, it was raised the whole issue of locker room expansion that occurred in 1 and 2. Hopefully everyone will remember that the board and council approved expanding locker room space and shower space. As a result of that, the operators for both Wellness Center 3 and 4, which is Langston University and the YMCA, made presentations and requested that consideration, they hoped consideration would be given to expanding their budgets so that including larger spaces to accommodate the obvious shortfalls in the smaller spaces. And so I know that I see that Brandon from Langston and Kelly from the YMCA are here. And perhaps if it's not out of order, Tom or David, they might have comments that they would like to make. I guess that's why they're here today. Is that correct? Is that okay with Tom now?
Any reason we can't do that, Carol? That would be fine then.
They made really compelling cases. Quite frankly, I would love for you guys to hear their presentation because it's very compelling.
Well, the pressure's on.
Well, good morning. My name is Brandon Brooks. I serve as the Assistant Vice President for Advancement and External Affairs at Langston University. I'm here with Kelly Kay, President and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City. I think our positions are very simple, as we discussed in our subcommittee meeting yesterday, is that given some of the lessons that we've already learned from Centers 1 and 2, we're trying to incorporate those lessons learned as we go through the design phases of Centers 3 and 4. And in doing so, of course, one of the key lessons is that we need more square footage for locker spaces. Our request to the subcommittee and to you all as an advisory committee is to consider providing additional funds up front that would allow us to proceed with larger locker rooms without compromising square footage in other parts of our existing centers. We are working, trying to work within the budget constraints, and that provides square footage constraints. And so adding square footage to locker rooms requires us to reduce square footage in other spaces. And so that's a consideration. Allow us to put these lessons learned to action up front, so we are not coming back to subcommittees later on looking to expand in other ways. Kelly?
No, that's very well said. Any questions for Brandon, or I can share a couple of additional thoughts real quickly. But
Please, go ahead.
Kelly Kay, president of the YMCA of Greater Oklahoma City, and yeah, we have been very excited to be part of the process, and I think very fortunate to be able to work with the planning process with the architects for both Center and 3 and 4. I think Brandon said it very well. It's just looking at what we've learned from the first 2 centers, the impact that they have, the way all of the spaces and the importance of all of the amenities that those centers have in them, working with the architects, trying to incorporate very similar amenities in these facilities, but also an additional amenity with a substantial indoor walking track. Specifically to our center in South Oklahoma City, we have a YMCA in Earlywine Park, and there is a huge walking and jogging population of seniors in that park year-round, but especially in the wintertime, the Y doesn't have an indoor walking track in our facility at that park. So we've tried to incorporate that into this facility, and basically the amount we're over budget right now is to have adequate sized locker rooms and to incorporate that track. We've been able to keep the track in for the Northeast Center, but just looking at, and the architects, both architects are doing a wonderful job of giving us kind of a range of where we are based on their best estimates for pricing and things like that, but it just looks like we're both in a position where we're slightly over budget, relatively small amounts compared to the monies that are going to have to go back into Centers 1 and 2 to get those areas right. So we're just asking, at least for consideration, to expand the budget slightly to provide those additional amenities on the front end and not have to come back. We still have room to expand additional spaces based on need as we go forward in the future, but this would really just provide all of the amenities that the current centers have for these communities as well, and adequate locker rooms to access those facilities. We know that a lot of very new first-time exercisers come into these facilities, and the walking track is a great introduction to exercise. The way we've designed it, they're right over and around the fitness center and the gym, so people will be able to walk and socialize and also be more comfortable maybe trying some of the things that are happening in the fitness center. And then also just the large classes that we've seen at Center 1 and 2 for both, the Silver Sneakers classes, the water exercise classes, and things like that, making sure that people we have adequate showers and changing areas, and people can circulate around within those areas adequately.
And Tom, I wanted to add, and I apologize for having to run out yesterday, and I didn't get to follow up with you guys about that. And the designs for 3 and 4, they're both extremely impressive. With 3 in particular, I'll tell you, when I looked at it and I saw how wonderful it was, I said, there's no way they're going to do that for $11 million. I mean, just in my novice mind of what's left. And one of the things that I didn't get to express yesterday in the design of 3 is you have 2 central restroom points, but you have a whole wing with no restrooms. And that, to me, it's down near the classrooms. I think it was the east wing. There's no restrooms in that area. And so I surmise that it was probably due to funding because there's no pipes down there. So you put everything at one end. But that's just one of the pieces of feedback I wanted to give to that when we're thinking about what to do with excess funds. There's a whole wing that doesn't have bathrooms in 3. So that was just one of my concerns. But I know this will all be in discussion in our next session, and we'll keep going through designs. But I think as we think about the excess money, this was our concern, that we made 3 and 4 correctly, if you will, so that it could meet the needs of all of our community, but also that we learned from, like you guys did from 1 and 2. So, but I thought the designs were great, and I think that they're going to be a great service to our communities in those areas.
And an additional thought, I think it's important that we don't take away the integrity of course, the programming in 3 and 4. And if we it's a zero-sum game, of course, with a limited budget. And so if we went ahead and did that expansion in locker rooms, then that's what would happen, I think, with having to adjust the floor plans and the design of 3 and 4. And then the final thought I wanted to have is that, or wanted to make is that you all remember a year or perhaps 2 years ago, it's been a while, that the subcommittee asked this board to consider a 5th wellness center in MAPS 3. And I think given what's happened with MAPS 4, and in fact, there is an additional wellness center that is included in MAPS 4, and I think in looking at the geographical distribution of these wellness centers in our community, the 5th wellness center is more than likely going to be in what I defined as kind of the near northwest Oklahoma City area, like between probably Penn and maybe as far west as MacArthur, 23rd to 63rd. That's the area of the city that's pretty densely populated, and both in terms of health outcomes and age would be kind of probably the last place that would make sense to put a wellness center. I think given that the request for a 5th wellness center in MAPS 3 probably is moot, it seems to me, and I just wanted to throw that in as a final thought. And I think today was just to kind of give the advisory board kind of a heads up on the thinking behind all that, and knowing that this will be considered, as you mentioned previously, Tom, as we look at how to use surplus and excess funds.
Now, David, you might comment on that for us, knowing that in the past we've had a contingency fund in each budget and a contingency fund in the overall project. Is if they bring this forward, is the only way we can do what they're asking us to do with excess funds, or is there other money available in the existing budgets that would be used first?
There's a little bit of money still in the contingency fund. It's less than $1 million, maybe $500,000, somewhere in there. But the bulk of the money is in excess collections and interest right now, and that's where any additional funds for any projects would have to come right now.
Okay. And would we've seen, we've reviewed and approved what it costs to expand the locker rooms in the 2 existing ones. Is that this costs less or more or about the same? I mean, if you plan it from the beginning, is it more efficient to do, or is it about the cost that we've had to undergo?
Well, it would certainly be more efficient because you could work it in, but I think the sky's the limit. You could spend as much as you want on expanding locker rooms and adding these things.
Well, Mike and I really like senior citizens, so this is an okay thing for us. Bob?
Just at the risk of overstating the obvious, I think conceptually the idea of learning from 1 and 2 and building that into 3 and 4, it's a no-brainer to do that. I think the issue obviously we're going to face is just the funding of it. And so I would encourage the operators working with the architects and other planners to be as creative as possible to make those necessary changes that you've learned from the other centers, and then come back to us with something that is practical and fundable within the budget that we have. Expanding locker rooms makes remarkably good sense, but if we don't have the money to do it, then we got to figure out some other way to get to that end point. So I'm just waiting with bated breath to see how the design comes back and how the dollars match up with what we want to do, because we obviously want to get there. Just a question, can we do so within the money that we have available?
Thank you. Mike?
Well, I concur. I mean, as I recall, we went into this whole senior wellness thing with with the idea that we really don't know what a senior wellness center is and what needs to be in there, and we explored around the country and looked at a lot of different options, and we built one and found, based on what we'd found out, and determined there was a few shortfalls. We built a second one, and so now that was the idea all along, I think, was to phase these things out. We didn't go out and design 4 of them. We didn't design them identically. We didn't, come up with a concept and say, this is the way it's going to be. We went into this with the idea that we'd be able to adjust these things and would learn from them. And so I think it makes sense to work off of the lessons we've learned. So.
You too. Anyone else? Well, I want to say to you that all of us, experience has taught us, and we know that the success of these senior wellness centers is dependent in great measure on the operators. We're going to put money in it and build it, but we know that long term, the viability of it's going to depend on having great partners. And I just wanted to say thank you to the YMCA and to Langston. That I think it is. We're delighted to have you as our partners in this endeavor, and we're looking forward to doing something that you'll be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to raise the issue.
Okay, that brings us to item 14 on the agenda. David, you want to give us an update on all the programs?
Yes, sir. I want to remind everybody that work continues at the river. The surf machine has started construction out there, so that is underway, and we hope to be bringing you some plans for some second floor build-out stuff next month. We talked extensively about senior wellness this month, just now. Trails and Sidewalks are wrapping up the very end of the Phase 4 sidewalks and doing punch list items out at Draper Trail. And what we did see at the Trails and Sidewalks meeting this month was potential for some additional trails and sidewalks with the money that's still within the budget, that's still in the program. So we'll be bringing you some additional projects in the coming months. We talked about Convention Center. Fairgrounds, we have a project ongoing out there with all the various projects that are being completed out there to make that a better facility. Park continues. They've pretty much finished their punch list on the upper park. The upper park is dormant now, but it's still a great place to walk around, and I encourage everybody to go out there. But I can't wait till the spring for the park to bloom. I really can't. And design continues on the lower part. Hope to be bringing you final plans in the coming weeks on that. And then the additional projects on the streetcar have begun. Nothing necessarily in the field, a lot of shop drawings and a lot of behind the scenes work, but those leaning rails that have the temporary netting on them will soon go away, and there'll be some other things that will be added out there. But lots still going on.
Questions for David? All right, then, that brings us to item 15 on the agenda. Any comments by the board members? Staff? Well, this is the opportunity that we have for any citizens that want to be heard, and just remind you that citizens are always welcome. We're delighted to have you here for your comments. You need to fill out one of these forms, and your comments are limited to 2 minutes, and I've been handed one. John A. Pettis. John, welcome. Come forward.
Take me 2 minutes to get up here.
We already started the clock.
Yeah. Nobody's more sympathetic about that than me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the opportunity to speak today. The two gentlemen that just spoke have basically addressed some of the concerns that I had in attending the meeting yesterday of the subcommittee regarding the senior citizen number 3 and number 4. In both of those presentations, there was room for expansion. On center number 3, there was like a 5,000 square foot expansion. And on number 4, the expansions that they had on the drawing was between 10 and 12,000 square feet. Okay, my concern, especially with Center number 3 is that we're basically going to be landlocked, okay, because the way the building is designed, and it's a beautiful design, and thank you all for the location of Wellness number 3, but Homeland is going to be located on the same property, and their corporate office is going to be located on the same property. So they have very little space where they can expand the Wellness Center number 3. I would be in hopes that they go ahead, that you provide additional funds for both of those centers' expansion so it doesn't have to be revisited. Center number 3 will be the smallest of all of them, even including the 5,000 square feet, if it's approved. It will only be 43,000 square feet. All of the others will be a little over 50,000 square feet if it's built with the expansions and everything. The center number 1, they were approved, the council approved an expansion of increasing their budget a little over $3 million. I would hope that this committee, with the excess funds, look at using the same amount to increase the budget for number 3 and 4, so that all the wellness centers would basically have the same dollars that they're working with, and not have to come back for additional funds a year from now or 2 years from now.
Thank you. Any questions for John? John, we appreciate you being here.
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to address that all of the wellness centers are around 40,000 square feet. There are no 50,000. The 3 and 4 are very close, and they have essentially the same budget right now. The things that we're seeing yesterday are very preliminary in nature, and we're still working through those issues. So it's just part of the process of seeing how we hone in on where we are.
Yeah, John, as we entered into this, we didn't know what the usage would be, and so they've each been approved. There hasn't been what I'll call a cookie cutter approach. It's been, each one has been built in response to the needs of its area, and in the instance, we were victims of a great success. In Wellness Center number 1, the usage that materialized so far exceeded our expectations that we could see that we needed to expand it. But we're starting off with the idea of treating them all the same, and there's no plan to do anything other than that. And there'll be plenty of opportunities to be heard as the plans are brought forward. Certainly, you should continue to express your views to the subcommittee, and rest assured, we're all in this to get a great result. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to item 16 on the agenda. Bob Neeland has moved for adjournment, seconded by Mike Dover. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. We're adjourned.